We will discuss maintaining conversational coherence. So conversational coherence is the ability of the agent to hold a thread. So conversational coherence is the agent's ability to hold a thread. So conversational coherence, it ensures that every new response feels like a natural continuation of a single unified dialogue rather than a series of disconnected answers. So that is what is conversational coherence is. So with memory systems, we can achieve conversational coherence. So conversational coherence, the idea is very clear that conversational coherence is the ability of AI agent to hold a thread. So we have a thread, and whatever interaction done on that thread, the LLM will be aware of that. So that's the idea of conversational coherence. So the whole point of conversational coherence is to achieve a natural continuation of a single unified dialogue. So we have to make that interaction very natural, and it should feel like a single unified dialogue, and that is possible with thread. So if the conversation follows a thread and all the interactions, if the large language model is aware of, so while generating a response, it will take into the consideration of the past interaction as well, which is a part of that thread, and hence the response will be perfectly aligned, and it will not be a series of disconnected answers. Like the user is talking about his birthplace, but agent, the large language model, it forgot, because earlier the user told the large language model about his birthplace, and then whatever the at that scenario, the conversation feel like very disconnected. So the idea of conversational coherence is very clear. Now let us discuss the core pillars of coherence. The core pillars of coherence. So to stay coherent, an agent must manage three specific internal functions. So the first pillar is the Anaphora Resolution. So what it means is the agent should understand what pronouns refer to. Understanding what pronouns refer to. So now we are discussing the core pillars of conversational coherence. So the first very important pillar is understanding what pronouns refer to. For example, we have a statement like, if you say my car is broken, and then can you fix it? For this particular statement, like if the user is giving a prompt like my car is broken, can you fix it? Then the large language model should be smart enough to understand which car it is referring to. So the agent must link it to a car, a relevant car. So if in the series of conversation, like the user has specified about his car, that which company, which brand, which model, then agent should not ask again about the car specification. And if there is nothing discussed about the car, then agent should ask about the car, the specification of the car. So that is what is Anaphora resolution means. And with this, we will be able to achieve conversational coherence, because now the agent knows whether to ask a cross question or not. So understanding what pronouns refer to. Now the second very important core pillar of coherence is the logical consistency. So if the agent agreed to write a poem in Spanish at the start, it should not switch to French halfway through. So logical consistency is very important. So whatever system prompts we are giving to an agent, agent should strictly follow it throughout the entire conversation. It should not happen that in the middle, it should start behaving in a different way. So that is the logical consistency. So logical consistency is like a second core pillar of coherence. And the third core pillar of coherence is the contextual anchoring. Contextual anchoring. So remembering the specific state of the word discussed. So contextual anchoring means remembering the specific state of the word which is already discussed with the agent. For example, that you are currently at the airport, not at home. So the idea is that uh, during the conversation, the agent should be very much active to decode the state of the word. Uh, During the conversation, the user has informed the agent that he is in airport. So agent should remember it. And while generating a response, agent should be aware that the user is at airport and not at home. And this contextual anchoring is very, very important, because just imagine if agent is not aware that the user is not at airport but at home. So his response might be the response of the agent might be somewhat specific to the home, and hence it will become irrelevant for the user. So for conversational coherence, contextual anchoring is very important, wherein the agent should remember the specific state of the word which is already discussed with it. So we saw the core pillars of coherence, wherein we saw the first pillar is the Anaphora resolution. So the idea is that the agent should understand what the pronouns refer to. Logical consistency is the second core pillar of coherence, wherein the agent should strictly follow the system prompts, and it should strictly agree, it should strictly stick to what it has agreed, and it should not switch its behavior in the midway. So that's the logical consistency. And also the third core pillar of coherence is the contextual anchoring, wherein the agent should remember the specific state of the word discussed with it. And with this, if these core pillars of coherence are taken care by the agent, then definitely we can very easily achieve conversational coherence. And with that, we will be able to achieve a natural continuation of a single unified dialogue with an AI agent, with an agentic AI system. Now let us look at some primary techniques for coherence. Now see, one very big problem with the short-term memory or the active memory is the limited context window. Because of the limited context window, we cannot store everything in the context window. And hence, achieving coherence is not that straightforward. Because if we would have had unlimited context window, then to all the interaction we would have stored it in the context window itself. But since the context window is limited, to achieve conversational coherence, we have to figure out some more advanced techniques, and that is what we are discussing. So the first technique that we are going to discuss is including recent turns, the immediate context. Including the recent turns, the immediate context. So the most effective way to stay coherent is to pass the last 3 to 5 messages. So the idea is that, let us suppose you had a conversation with the agent, with the agentic AI system. You had a conversation with the agentic AI system. That session got closed. Now you started a new session. Like the next day morning, you started a fresh session, and definitely you want a coherence conversation, like a conversational coherence. Then what you can do is, from the previous conversation, the most recent conversation, from the recent conversation history, you just pick out 3 4 messages, the interaction. You just copy 3 4 messages and give it to the agentic AI system as a new prompt. And with this, what exactly you are doing is that you are providing the rhythm of the conversation. And using this rhythm of the conversation, it will allow the large language model to mirror your tone and follow the immediate logic. And automatically, the response of the new session will resemble with that of the response of the past sessions. So that is what is the meaning of including the recent turns. So while we are giving a prompt to a large language model, if we give it a, some immediate context, like the most recent conversation, that conversation itself, if we give, then after that we start giving it fresh prompts, then it will follow. Then the large language model will follow it will mirror the tone and follows the immediate logic. And we will be able to achieve conversational coherence. Now, the second very important technique for maintaining conversational coherence is the recursive summarization, the cliff notes. Now, let us understand what is the meaning of recursive summarization, the cliff notes. So, instead of keeping every word of a long chat, the agent creates a running summary. So, recursive summarization means instead of storing everything as it is, we should store it in the form of summaries, the cliff notes, because we know that the context window size is limited. So what we can do is that whatever old data is there, old messages is there, like 50 messages about a trip to Italy. So the old 50 messages I have, I will just take it, condense it, like I will summarize it, condense it and add it back to the active context window. So from this 50 messages, I have created a running summary, like user is planning 10-day trip to Rome in June, prefers boutique hotels, $5,000 budget, like that. And this summary, this running summary of the old data, it stays at the top of the context window, providing a north star for all future answers. Now, the next very important technique to achieve conversational coherence is the entity tracking. So advanced agents, they maintain a hidden list of entities. And when I talk about entities, entities refers to people, places, objects. So advanced agents, they maintain a list of entities and their current status. For example, I have an entity called user and the status or the value is the John Doe. Entity is project, the status is the alpha 1. Deadline Friday. So when the agent mentions the project, it checks the list. It checks this hidden list of entities to ensure it specifies alpha 1 and not a random project from a different session. So this entity tracking is very, very important. So the idea is that during the conversation, whatever entities the agent encounters, those entities, it will store it in the form of a hidden list, wherein it will be storing the entity along with the value of it. And because of that, the good thing is that later on, like in the long run, because in the conversation, if the user is telling about a project, he's not specifying the name, he's just referring the project. And with this entity tracking in place, agent can very easily get to know that, okay, like during the conversation, we talked about Alpha 1 project. So now the user might be referring to the Alpha 1 project. So all the confusions can be taken care of. All the hallucinations can be taken care of. So this is like a very powerful technique, entity tracking, and it will certainly play a role in conversational coherence. So now it's very clear that if we talk about the primary techniques for coherence, so the idea is that we have a large language model, so the agent's processing core. Now what we are doing is that we are giving it the recent conversation history. Like we are uh, giving it last 3 to 5 messages. So agent will combine these inputs to generate a relevant on track reply. Like using these last 3 to 5 messages, the agent will get to know about the tone, and it will follow though that tone in the upcoming while generating the further responses. Second very important technique we discussed was we should basically do the recursive summarization. So whatever old messages we have, before they get wiped off, we have to just summarize them. We should create a running summary of those old messages and put it at the top of the context. And this summary will act like a north star which will guide all the future answers. And third very important technique we looked at is the entity tracking, wherein the agent should make a hidden list of entities. It should maintain a hidden list of entities containing the entity and the status or the value. And this can be very useful in generating coherent responses. Now let us look at example of coherence in action. Now, if we talk about coherence without memory, so without memory, there is a challenge for coherence. So let's see what happens without memory. So in the turn one, the user is clearly telling the AI agent that I am allergic to selfish. So it's a very key constraint which is given by the user to the agent. And in the turn 10, the user is asking a question, suggest a good dinner for tonight. Now, since memory is missing, so agent has forgotten that user is allergic to selfish. So the agent will recommend a selfish recipe for dinner, and it can be a disaster because without memory, the agent will forget the constraints, and because of that, it will generate a response which will not take into consideration the constraints of the user, and because of that the end user will lose the trust on the AI agentic AI system. The end user will become frustrated, and it will like create a break in the experience. It will create the break in the experience. Now what if we are making use of the contextual memory? So with contextual memory we can achieve coherence. So it's the same scenario. Now in the turn one, the user is telling that I am allergic to selfish. And with the contextual memory, we will be storing this very important information in the active context window. Context window will store it. So that in the turn 10 also, when the user is asking a question to the agent that suggests a good dinner for tonight, the AI agent will refer its context window, and there it will remember that okay, this user is allergic to selfish. Then the response the agent will generate is very much appropriate. Since you are allergic to selfish, how about a steakhouse or an Italian spot with great pasta options? So this is the coherent response we got because of the contextual memory. So smooth and intelligent flow, which will lead to better user experience, because the user will be very happy if agent remembers that if the agent response is something like that, like since you are allergic to selfish, the user will be very happy that it will the user will basically be convinced that he can trust the agentic AI system, because agentic AI system is taking care of the key constraints of the user. And this is a very very important aspect. Like if you are designing an agentic AI system, this is something which we have to take into consideration. We have to maintain the conversational coherence, and for that we have to make use of the contextual memory. So now let us discuss the coherence failure. So whenever there is a coherence failure, it will lead to hallucination, because coherence failure will create unnecessary confusion and it will lead to hallucination. So when an agent loses coherence, it often hallucinates or contradicts itself. This usually happens when the context window is too full. When the context window is too full, old data gets wiped off. Because of that, the agent starts forgetting the old information and it can lead to coherence failure. The rolling buffer dropped a critical piece of info. And we already saw that the goldfish problem. So the rolling buffer. So we know that whenever the context window overflow occurs, the old data, it gets wiped off because of the rolling memory buffers. So when those old information are flushed out of the buffer, agent will forget that, and hence it might the agent might contradict or might hallucinate. And if the summary was too vague, because we saw something called as recursive summarization, wherein the idea is that when there is a context window overflow, the old messages which are getting wiped off, if we just take them, summarize them, and put it back on top of the context window, we are fixing the goldfish problem. But what if the summary was too vague? In that scenario also, very sensitive and like very important information we are forgetting, the agent is forgetting, and because of that it can hallucinate and it can contradict. So whenever an agent loses coherence, it often hallucinates or contradicts itself. So coherence, if I talk about, it is the foundation of reliability. So coherence is trust. So if you want to build trust in your agentic AI system, then we have to take coherence very seriously, because coherence is equal to trust. Coherence is the foundation of reliability, because if the agentic AI system, it remembers your flight or deadline across 20 messages, you start treating it like a collaborator. And this is the power of coherence. So coherence is basically the memory plus correct referencing. So the meaning of coherence is like memory plus correct referencing. Correct referencing, the idea is that uh, during the conversation, the user may use pronouns like the car or the project. So we should be able to correctly refer that, okay, the user is talking about this car, the user is talking about this project. So coherence is memory plus correct referencing. And this is very, very important to build trust, because coherence is the foundation of reliability. So if the agentic AI system forgets, you treat it as a search engine, then you will not treat it like a partner, you will not treat it like a collaborator. Rather, you will treat the AI agentic AI system as search engine. So now it's very clear the importance of maintaining conversational coherence. That is memory plus correct referencing.